What's going on, YouTube? Today I'm talking about the free agents and where I think they're going to land. Free agency, the tampering period starts Monday, which means that they can start talking to guys, but free agency doesn't officially start until next Wednesday, St. Patty's Day. But yeah, anyway, so I got some stuff set up and we're going to be looking at some free agents. So going into our first one, we got Alex Smith. I think he's going to end up landing with the Lions, probably as their backup. If you look at Alex Smith's career, his entire career has pretty much been, he's been a starter most of his career, obviously. But the main thing that they've used him for is kind of as a bridge quarterback to other guys. Think Colin Kaepernick, Patrick Mahomes. He was supposed to be the bridge quarterback for Dwayne Haskins, but that didn't work out, obviously. And I don't think he's going to start for the Lions, but he'll probably again be that kind of, help Jared Goff learn and develop, because he's still young, obviously. So I do think that's where Alex Smith lands, probably on a smaller deal. Lions don't have the best cap space, but this is where I predict him to land. Then next we have Ryan Fitzpatrick, who it seemed like he was going to retire, and then apparently he does want to play now. And I think a great fit for him is the Broncos, a team that, they're going to be looking for a veteran quarterback to back up Drew Lock if he is their starter next year. And I don't see a better choice for that than Ryan Fitzpatrick. This guy is the number one choice right now if you want a veteran backup that, if needed, can start. Lock's had a few injury issues before and just in general hasn't played like the best quarterback. Ryan Fitzpatrick is a great guy to come in there, help Lock learn, put pressure on him, but also if you really need him to, he can go in there and still play at a decent level. So I think it makes sense here for the Broncos. Then we have Cam Newton, who I think he's going to end up in Washington. I think it makes sense with the Ron Rivera connection. As well as, you'll later on see that I have a few other free agents going there because of the Cam Newton selection, but I think it makes sense as well. They showed that they know how to use Taylor Heinicke pretty well. They like that kind of running type quarterback who can throw, and Cam Newton's not the best passer in the NFL by a long shot, but he is a pretty good runner. So I think the connections there make sense, and I don't see him going back to the Patriots. So yeah, I think this makes sense for Washington and Cam Newton. Then we got Mitch Trubisky. I don't think he stays with the Bears. I think it's probably time to move on from him, and he goes over to the 49ers, which are the other team that could have drafted him. I think in taking him, you're probably going to either have him as a backup to Jimmy G or whoever they have there, or maybe they try to develop him. Maybe they keep Jimmy Garoppolo for another 2 years. And who knows? I mean, if any system is going to fit Mitch Trubisky, it's definitely a Shanahan offense. And so, maybe they develop him and maybe he picks it up, and then they can start him once they're done with Jimmy G over the next year or two. But I think this is the most logical place for Mitch Trubisky. Then our last quarterback, we have Jameis Winston. And I even with their cap situation, which has gotten far better, I think they're like negative 20-something million now. I think that they should still probably try to keep Jameis Winston. He showed some things in the time that he played there last year. I don't trust Taysom Hill to be the Saints starter for a full year. I'm not sure. And plus the fact that he's just as much of a running quarterback as, say, like a Lamar Jackson, but he doesn't slide as much. So there's definitely an injury concern there. I would feel a lot more comfortable keeping Winston there. Who knows? Maybe he's your future starter. Maybe he'll show something. Technically he should only be just entering his prime now. So he could have yet to give his best years of football. So I think it makes sense for the Saints and for Jameis Winston. Although he could go other places, maybe the Patriots or such. I do think this makes sense for Winston. Then with our first running back, we have Kenyon Drake, who I do believe is going to be leaving the Cardinals. And this may seem like a strange pick at first, but I think Washington makes actually some sense for them. If you look at Washington, they're going to be wanting to get some more offensive threats, obviously. And they already have Antonio Gibson. But Antonio Gibson is a runner. Beyond being a running back, he doesn't catch that well. He's not an elite receiving back. You know who is an elite receiving back? Kenyon Drake. I think that'd be a great two-headed monster. Plus, you've still got Antonio Gibson on a rookie-sized contract right now. These guys will both have their contracts ending if they do get this 3-year deal that I'm predicting. Both of those guys' contracts will be ending the same year, and whoever's performed better or fits better with the team at that point, you keep one of those guys. I think it makes sense. And he's even a solid runner as well. So, Gibson doesn't have to be in there 24/7. He has receiving threats for it would probably be Cam Newton there or a developing rookie, maybe even Heineke. So I think it makes sense actually, especially with there are other teams that need a running back here, but we're going to see some of those other teams get that running back. Next up, we have Mike Davis, who is a free agent. And after kind of a breakout year in 2020 because of Christian McCaffrey's injury, you'd think maybe another team would be willing to get him, but I actually think the Panthers are probably going to try and retain him. Not only was he great when Christian McCaffrey was hurt, obviously, but it's kind of scarily seeming like Christian McCaffrey might be injury prone now. So, if you take that top weapon out of that offense for a good amount of the time, say he does become injury prone, that's going to hurt the team overall very, very poorly. So if you have a guy like Mike Davis that did an amazing job when Christian McCaffrey was out, I think it's a good idea to keep him around in this contract. He'd be there till he's 30. Then they probably keep McCaffrey from there, but I think they probably want to keep him for right now just in case. And I feel like they're the team that would probably he'd be willing to stay, most likely. So then we have Chris Carson, who gets a big contract here with the Jets. I feel like the Jets, this free agency, really just have to focus more on getting big playmakers, across the board. And one guy that is definitely a big playmaker is Chris Carson. Now, I get it. Some people aren't very high on Chris Carson. They probably don't think he deserves a big contract because he rarely finishes a season healthy, and that is obviously an issue. However, I still do think that he is a top 10 running back in the NFL. I don't think there's a discussion about that. He is a great running back when healthy. I think he fits with that Jets scheme. Yeah, they already have LaMichael Pirine, I'm pretty sure is his name, but Chris Carson's so much better than Pirine. Plus, he can make plays in the catching game as well. I think he's the best running back option for the Jets in this free agency, especially since Frank Gore's a free agent, and I don't see them retaining him, even if he does come back to play another year. James Conner, I do believe, leaves the Steelers since he really just hasn't done much for them. He's not been that good of a running back. And with the Cardinals losing Kenyon Drake, I really like the fit of James Conner with the Cardinals, actually. I think give him like a little 2-year deal, see what he does in those 2 years. If he works out, then maybe you keep him for longer. If he doesn't work out, then you let him go after those 2 years. I think he fits with the Cardinals and what they like to do. They're smaller receiving back types, but can also run as well. I think James Conner fits pretty well with that. Is he a downgrade over Kenyon Drake? Yes, but the Cardinals do not have the best cap space in the NFL, and they definitely have to look to other positions. So they take a bit of a downgrade here, but who knows what they can get out of James Conner. Then we have Marlon Mack, who, after losing Chris Carson, it's kind of the same situation here. Seahawks take a bit of a downgrade while still getting a pretty solid running back. Marlon Mack is one of the more underrated backs in the NFL, honestly. The Colts are not going to keep him. They have Nyheim Hines and Jonathan Taylor. There's just no way they keep him. And I think he'll go earn himself a nice contract over in Seattle after they lose Chris Carson. Their cap space maybe should try to go towards O-line or, pass rush. And we'll see about pass rush tomorrow. But for O-line, it's kind of like I feel they're losing some important pieces. Greg Olsen retired. They're not going to probably keep Chris Carson. I think you've got to at least stay decent at those positions. And it sucks, right? Because you're trying to make Russell Wilson happy, but they might not even be trying to make Russell Wilson happy. It kind of seems like they don't care what he thinks. So in this case, again, you downgrade, but you still get a pretty solid running back out of it. Then we have Aaron Jones, the big running back free agent of this class. And, I just don't see the Packers retaining him. They don't have the cap. I don't even know if he would want to stay there. They already have A.J. Dillon, who looks like a great running back in the future. Whereas the Dolphins have a ton of cap space, and I think would be very willing to jump on a guy like this. He's an instant upgrade over anyone on that roster at the running back position. I think it's great. I think he earns himself a big contract here, gets big money. So I think he makes sense with the Dolphins. Then moving on to our first receiver, we have T.Y. Hilton, who is leaving the Colts. It does seem like they've agreed to, go their own ways. And I think T.Y. Hilton makes a lot of sense for the Patriots. He kind of he feels like a Patriot to me. Sometimes there are those players where you just you can feel them on that team. T.Y. Hilton with the Patriots is just kind of one of those fits for me. He's not the elite receiver he used to be, which is why he gets a small little contract here. But he is still a solid guy and an upgrade over certain other guys on that roster right now. So maybe he's not your number one because of Julian Edelman, but T.Y. Hilton is still a upgrade over what they have right now. Then we have Emmanuel Sanders, who recently got cut by the Saints. And, I still think this guy can do some work. And I think he makes sense for a team like the Giants, who do not have the best cap space at all. They're not going to be able to make any big signings. However, you get, a guy like Emmanuel Sanders here that can still give you some decent production before he retires, because he hasn't been all that horrible. The Saints just really didn't use him much, and I don't feel like they were a good fit for Emmanuel Sanders. With the Giants, though, who knows what he can do over there. I think he could put up, again, some decent production and get, Danny Dimes a weapon. If I'm sure they'll probably draft one as well, but, someone else there, too, besides Darius Slayton, so. Then we have Sammy Watkins, who probably is leaving the Chiefs, another team that's just not in a good cap situation right now. And they've already got receivers. They have McCole Hardman and Demarcus Robinson beyond Tyreek Hill already. So I think that let go of Sammy Watkins, and I think a team that makes sense for him is the Colts. They'll let go of T.Y. Hilton, and then they already needed receiver help. But then especially after losing T.Y. Hilton, I think Sammy Watkins makes a lot of sense for the Colts. One of those things, again, where it's just he kind of comes off as a Colt to me. And, yeah, it makes sense, and this is a place I feel he'll go. Kenny Golladay, the big guy of the receiver market, who didn't get tagged by the Lions, and maybe this surprises some people, because I see a lot of people thinking the Patriots or potentially the Jaguars are going to pick this guy up, but I think that the Dolphins are going to go for some big name guys. They're already a team that's really close to on the brink of being elite. They just don't have those big elite players, especially on the offensive side. And getting guys like Aaron Jones and Kenny Golladay would help that. He earns himself a big contract there down in Miami. I think he makes sense. And I think the Dolphins would be willing to give up the same amount for maybe the Patriots were and stuff. And I'd much rather go to the Dolphins right now than the Patriots. All they would have to do at that point is just get the O-line a bit better, and they're a scary team, so. Then we got Corey Davis. Originally, I thought he would most likely stay with the Titans. He had a breakout year last year, sure, but that's really the only good year he's had. So I thought maybe it makes sense for the Titans to retain him, maybe like a one-year contract. But then I looked at the Colts and the Patriots, who are still very wide receiver needy teams. And between the two, I just thought the Colts, again, made some more sense than the Patriots, maybe. I think he'd fit better with them. They do need receivers a bit more bad than the Patriots do, and I still think I'd rather go to the Colts than the Patriots at this point in time. So Corey Davis, a small little contract, just kind of a prove-it deal, which most of the time are one-year contracts, but who knows what you'll get, so. Then we have Will Fuller, and Will Fuller is interesting for me because I am going to the Patriots here. So Will Fuller, I think he doesn't end up getting that big of a contract. With Will Fuller, there are some concerns. He has not been able to stay healthy very long in his career, and he's also had his fair share of off-the-field issues, even just last year with taking some, it was like strength enhancers, I believe. So there are some question marks about him, which is why he gets a smaller contract here. But when he's on the field and healthy, he is an elite wide receiver, and I don't think there's arguing that, because like the production that he puts up when he's healthy, it's great. So I think the Patriots should take a bet on this guy. Bill Belichick is a no-nonsense type of person, but he was able to put up with Cam Newton. So, maybe a guy like this, he can maybe even, help, give him some, what's the word I'm looking for? He can help him, fix his off-the-field issues and stuff. Injuries, yeah, still a concern, but I do think Will Fuller makes sense for the Patriots here, who, they get two good receivers, so. Then we have Antonio Brown, and I think Antonio Brown is a guy that teams are still going to be very wary about. Even after he played pretty great for the Buccaneers in the time he was there, I still think you got to be wary about the fact that this guy could be suspended at any time, basically. He does weird stuff, and I was really considering giving him to the Lions at first because I thought, like, what better fit in the NFL? If Dan Campbell told Antonio Brown to bite off a kneecap, Antonio Brown would just ask which one. So I thought that would have been a great pairing. But then I looked at it and I was like, yeah, But the Jaguars definitely have a lot more cap than the Lions, and they don't give him a big deal here or anything. But I think the Jaguars is maybe a bit more of an enticing location for Brown than the Lions. And again, just with the cap situations and all that. So I do think it makes sense here for Antonio Brown, a small little contract, see if the issues will stop off the field. But yeah, I think it makes sense here. Then we have Curtis Samuel, and this is what I was talking about earlier with Cam Newton. I think Curtis Samuel ends up going to the Washington football team, a team that also needs receivers pretty badly because of Cam Newton. They played together for a few years when Samuel was still a rookie and on his rookie contract down in Carolina. So I think, obviously there's the connection there. Again, Washington needs receivers pretty badly, and I think it makes sense here. So I like the fit here for Curtis Samuel. And then we have Juju Smith-Schuster, the other big guy in the wide receiver market. And I think the Jets makes a lot of sense. There are other teams that certainly do make sense. The Patriots are a big market, obviously. The Ravens. Ravens make sense as well. The Raiders also, because Las Vegas, there's not really much of a bigger market. But I do think the Jets are going to be the most enticing place to him. They definitely have the most money out of anyone to offer him, and he gets a big contract here. As well as, New York is a big market. It's a big place. So I think, it's all kind of there for him. Again, Raiders, Ravens also make sense, but they just don't have the cap. So I think Jets makes the most sense here for Juju. Then moving on to our tight ends, we have Hunter Henry, who I think is going to go to the Patriots. They've been trying for a few years now to kind of find a guy in the later rounds of the draft and such, and they've just not done it. They've tried Matt LaCosse, they've tried Devin Asiasi, Dalton Keene, and they just haven't worked out. So I think it's finally time, especially with the cap they have right now, go out and get a tight end that is going to put up great numbers for you over the next 4 years. They get some great receiving threats here. Now all the Patriots need is a quarterback, and that offense can be really, really good, especially after trading for Trent Brown. So I think Hunter Henry makes sense here. It's either them or the Colts. I don't think he's staying with the Chargers, but I think Patriots makes the most sense here. Then we have Jonnu Smith, and Jonnu Smith is a guy I think people are overrating a bit. He'll still be a starter somewhere. He'll still get a decent contract. I don't know where all the talk has always been. Even as soon as last year, people were really loving this guy, and thinking he was gonna be a big breakout guy, and I just wasn't sure why. And he still hasn't really shown that. So I think he'll get a decent sized contract somewhere, such as the Jaguars here, who have the cap. They need a tight end. And Smith seems like a good fit, especially as the division rival. I just don't get what the hype is for Jonnu Smith personally. Then moving on, we have Mo Alie-Cox, who kind of had a breakout year for the Colts. I don't think they're going to keep him since they already have Trey Burton and the other tight end. I can't remember his name right now. But Mo Alie-Cox, I think he's going to go somewhere else. And I think the Seahawks make a good amount of sense. Again, kind of with the idea of, they lost Greg Olsen, Chris Carson. So, get some guys back for those positions. Even if you're not able to upgrade, you want to stay the same. They're not the best cap-wise right now. So I think Mo Alie-Cox makes sense for the Seahawks, and I think he could be a solid tight end over there. Then moving on to our offensive lineman, we have Joe Thuney, who I do believe is going to be leaving the Patriots after trading for Trent Brown. And I especially don't think the Patriots are going to keep him after he goes off and gets a big contract from the Bengals, who, it's one of those kind of things where I just see Joe Thuney as a Bengal. I envision him with that Bengals uniform, and I think he'd be a great guard over there for him. Get some protection for Joe Burrow. It makes the offensive line a lot better. Then we have Trent Williams, who I do think is going to stay with the 49ers. He is maybe the best free agent in this entire free agency class. And you just don't let that go, especially when you're able to keep him. They have the cap. It's just more of, do they want to spend it elsewhere? Yes, you lose out on other guys like, Richard Sherman and Jason Verrett would most likely leave. They got Mitch Trubisky earlier, but I think they got to keep him. He gets a big contract here, 3 years, $18 million. I think it makes sense, and keep maybe the best left tackle in football. Then we got Alejandro Villanueva leaving the Steelers, and I think the Panthers makes a lot of sense, especially after tagging Taylor Moton. Why not make that offensive line at least pretty good for next year, even if Taylor Moton leaves after that? Whoever's back there, whether it's Justin Fields, Teddy Bridgewater, Deshaun Watson, getting a guy like Villanueva would make the offensive line a lot better than whoever they have at left tackle. I think it's Russell Okung, and he's a free agent anyways. So, yeah, I think this is a good move by the Panthers, and I think this is a sensible signing. Then we have Alex Mack, who's starting to get up there in age. Honestly, he could retire, especially since he's been starting to go on the downwards trend recently. However, I do think, at some point the Steelers are going to sign some offensive linemen. After the retiring of Marquise Pouncey, I think Alex Mack makes a ton of sense here to the Steelers. He gets in the same division with his old team, the Browns. A small little contract. This is basically the only free agent signing they can make. But I think it makes sense since they need to get that offensive line better. And Alex Mack is just kind of the only guy that really fits that here. Then we have Corey Linsley, the other big prize of the free agent market, who was by far the best center in football this year, and it's not even close. I think he goes off and gets a big contract with the Chargers, who are another team that really just needs to get some help on the offensive line. I slot him right there in the center. If you really want to, you can put him at guard, but he is a center. He was the best center in football, so I don't see why change that. Again, just another guy that makes that offensive line completely better as soon as he's there. It just makes sense. And I envision him in a Chargers uniform. Then we have Eric Fisher, who was recently cut by the Chiefs, which, don't even ask me to explain why. I don't know why they cut their tackles. It's a dumb move to me. Supposedly they're scared by the injuries, but I wouldn't imagine they're that bad to cut them in a panic. You're not even positive at cap. You just made your offensive line that much worse. Plus they're losing Austin Reeder. The Chiefs made, in my opinion, their first legitimate stupid move in a while. But I do think a team that makes a lot of sense here for Eric Fisher is the Colts. After Costanzo retired, they need a left tackle, obviously, and I think this is a great fit. They have the money to pay him. I think he's one of the more underrated tackles in football, honestly. I think it makes a lot of sense here for the Colts. Then we have David Andrews, and I think the Patriots are going to retain him. They have the cap. I don't see why not. They'll let go of Joe Thuney because he's going to go get a big contract for the Bengals. However, keep David Andrews around for a while. He's one of the other really good centers in football. So I think this makes sense here for the Patriots. And I don't see any reason why he'd want to leave right now. Then we have Darrell Williams, who I do think since Buffalo didn't tag him, he is probably moving on. Yeah, they can resign him, but I don't think they have the money to. And there's a team, again, like the Bengals that are willing to pay big money for the offensive line, I'm assuming. $30 million for 2 offensive linemen may seem like a lot, but, put him at that right tackle position. You now have an elite right tackle, an elite left or right guard, wherever they want to put Joe Thuney, a decent to good center already in Trey Hopkins. Jonah Williams is a young, developing tackle. And, let's say they get their hands on Penei Sewell. You can slot Sewell in there at that other guard position where he'll be elite. Or you can put him at left tackle if you really don't want to keep Jonah Williams, I guess, and also have him be elite. But, if they sign Darrell Williams, get Joe Thuney, and draft Penei Sewell, they just went from one of the worst offensive lines to one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. And even then, with these free agent signings here, you can use that pick maybe on a receiver like Jamar Chase or such. So, because, maybe the Dolphins take Penei Sewell, especially after getting a guy like Kenny Golladay. So, who knows? Regardless, this is a great signing for them, I think. Another guy that I can envision in a Bengals jersey and makes that offensive line that much better. And then we have Mitchell Schwartz, the other tackle that got cut by the Chiefs, and I just don't get why. I don't think his injury is going to be that big of an issue. And I think a team like the Jaguars, who need offensive line help, I think they'd jump on this in a heartbeat. This guy's probably the best tackle, maybe the best player in the free agency market right now. Give him a huge contract, keep him around for a while. They tagged Cam Robinson. Now you get Mitchell Schwartz in there to help protect Trevor Lawrence. Heck yeah, why not? I don't see why a team like the Jaguars wouldn't do this. I do think Mitchell Schwartz is definitely going to end up with the Jaguars. That's my locked-in pick. I don't think any team really makes much sense because they, A, can't afford him, or B, just, I just think the Jaguars make a lot of sense for Mitchell Schwartz. So yeah, and then looking at some other guys that didn't quite make the list, but, are some names to take into account. Jacoby Brissett, he's probably going to sign somewhere like the Patriots. Tyrod Taylor, who knows where he could go. Adrian Peterson, Frank Gore, 2 older running backs, could really sign wherever, probably not contenders. AJ Green, injury-prone, older receiver now. I don't even know if anyone's going to sign him. Rob Gronkowski, Kyle Rudolph, Jared Cook, and Gerald Everett are all 4 great tight ends that someone's going to pick up. Gronkowski probably staying with the Buccaneers, especially after Brady is for sure going to be there next year. Everett's not even that old of a guy. He's just a young, solid tight end, so someone's got to pick that up. And then Cook and Rudolph, again, I think they'll sign somewhere. And then we have some offensive linemen there that are not quite as big names, but are still impact players for any team that needs a tackle or a guard. Riley Reef, Gabe Jackson, Incognito, Rick Wagner, and a really, really underrated offensive lineman in Brian Winters. So some great options here for teams, even if they don't get big name players. But that is my free agency predictions for the 2021 NFL offseason, offense version. Defense will be out tomorrow. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to like, leave a comment, subscribe. New videos coming out all the time. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see all you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.